So just how bad is Kash Patel's leadership at the FBI? It is so bad that with his latest chaotic firings, the FBI Agents Association, which represents 14,000 agents, including more than 90% of all active FBI agents, has issued a blistering public rebuke, calling Kash Patel's actions, quote, erratic and arbitrary retribution. As a part of the ongoing purge at the FBI, several agents who worked on investigations related to Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election results were fired by Kash Patel earlier this week, then reinstated after pushback from none other than acting D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, only to be fired again by Kash Patel the next morning. After that nonsensical and arbitrary whiplash, an FBI Agents Association spokesperson telling Axios that the firings, quote, highlight the chaos that occurs when long-standing policies and processes are ignored. An agent simply being assigned to an investigation and conducting it appropriately within the law should never be grounds for termination. Quote, FBI agents deal in facts, and we urge Director Patel to do the same. When leadership abandons due process, it doesn't just erode trust. It makes the American public less safe. FBI agents must be free to focus on protecting the American people, not fear losing their jobs over third-party social media posts.
The unraveling of Kash Patel's leadership didn't start with a courtroom, a televised hearing, or even a leaked memo. It began with something far more unthinkable, an open revolt inside the FBI. Imagine the scale of that for a moment. An institution famous for keeping its internal disputes locked behind steel walls suddenly stepping forward as one voice. The FBI Agents Association, representing roughly 14,000 agents, more than 90% of the entire active workforce, delivered a blistering rebuke of the man who was supposed to lead them. They didn't mince words. Their message was clear. Patel's leadership wasn't just failing, it was tearing the agency apart. And that was before anyone even looked at the evidence piling up behind the scenes. Documents, testimonies, internal communications, pieces of a puzzle that all seemed to point in one direction. Something was very wrong at the highest levels of federal law enforcement. And as this story exploded in public, it quickly became obvious that the damage extended far beyond Patel himself. This all came to a head when Patel appeared before Congress, sitting under oath and facing senators who had clearly done their homework. He was confident at first, calm, rehearsed, almost smug. But that confidence began to crack the moment senators confronted him with contradictions too large to ignore. He denied knowing anything about retaliatory firings. He denied having any role in a political purge. He denied being aware of any planned removals of FBI personnel tied to Trump-related investigations. But every denial seemed to fall apart the second it left his mouth because the senators questioning him already had the receipts. And when those contradictions surfaced, they didn't just raise eyebrows, they sent shockwaves across Washington. Whistleblowers, some at the highest levels of the FBI, had come forward. They didn't whisper their claims, they documented them. They provided internal emails, notes from classified briefings, details from meetings, even timelines charting when decisions were made and who was present. These weren't disgruntled employees. These were respected career officials risking everything, careers, pensions, reputations, because they said the truth mattered more than their own safety. Their accounts painted a picture that was both shocking and deeply troubling. According to them, Patel wasn't just aware of the political purge, he was orchestrating it. And here's where the story gets even more astounding. Whistleblowers claimed Patel began coordinating firings before his confirmation hearing. Before he even had legal authority to take action, he was already meeting with senior Trump administration officials, mapping out who would be removed, discussing targets, identifying investigators who had worked on January 6th, on classified documents, and on Trump's federal cases. Reports claim he made it clear that loyalty, not expertise, not performance, not national security, would decide who stayed and who was pushed out. The goal wasn't improving the FBI. It was reshaping it into something that resembled a personal enforcement arm. When senators confronted Patel with these claims, he denied everything. He claimed he had never taken part in retaliation, never pushed for firings tied to investigations involving Trump, never coordinated with White House figures. But the whistleblower evidence contradicted him directly. And that contradiction is what triggered the most serious accusations of all: perjury, lying under oath, a felony. And the consequences stretch far beyond Kash Patel himself. Because if the whistleblowers are correct, if Patel coordinated retaliatory actions with administration officials, then the responsibility doesn't stop with him. It could reach all the way to the Oval Office. The lawsuit filed by 3 former FBI officials only amplified the crisis. These weren't minor figures. These were high-ranking supervisors overseeing counterterrorism, cyber threats, trafficking, and major violent crime operations. They weren't fired over performance. They weren't fired for misconduct. They were fired, according to their lawsuit, because they were viewed as disloyal to Trump. Their cases weren't hypothetical. They were real people with decades of experience suddenly told to resign or be terminated. And the most damaging part is what Patel reportedly said behind closed doors. According to the complaint, Patel acknowledged privately that some firings could have been illegal, that they possibly violated federal law meant to protect agents from political retaliation. That one admission, if true, blows up every defense he gave to Congress. Publicly, Patel insisted he knew nothing. Privately, he allegedly admitted the opposite. That contradiction alone set off alarms across the Senate. And when Senator Dick Durbin presented these contradictions, he did so with clear frustration. He revealed that multiple whistleblowers had offered consistent accounts, all pointing to Patel as the central architect of a political purge. Durbin sent a formal letter to the Inspector General demanding an investigation into perjury, stating that Patel's sworn testimony simply did not match the evidence. It's rare to see a senator accuse an FBI director of lying under oath so openly. It's even rarer for those accusations to be so strongly supported by documentation. The purges were far more expansive than initially believed. According to whistleblower accounts, supervisors were summoned into conference rooms and told they needed to step down. They weren't given performance reviews or misconduct reports. They were told bluntly that their removal was political. Some were investigating Trump's classified documents case. Others were handling January 6th cases. All were considered inconvenient, and all were pushed out. Agents who devoted their careers to fighting terrorism, defending the country, and upholding federal law found themselves replaced because they stood on the wrong side of political loyalty. This wasn't speculation. This was documented in emails, internal memos, and sworn statements. More disturbing information came out when Patel faced questioning about whether any agent had been fired simply for working on cases involving Trump. He denied it instantly. But when Senator Adam Schiff reframed the question, Patel shifted his language. He suddenly claimed that no agent was fired solely for working on a Trump-related case. That one word, solely, sent shockwaves through the room. It implied that case assignments were part of the reason for termination, and that contradicts his earlier categorical denials. It was the closest thing to an admission that political considerations influenced personnel decisions. That alone could form the basis of a perjury charge. Then came the contradictions that were impossible to explain away. Patel told senators he didn't know who far-right podcaster Stuart Peters was, but his official Senate questionnaire showed 8 separate media appearances with Peters. Peters himself publicly insisted they exchanged personal contact info and regularly communicated. Patel denied any involvement with the January 6th choir project, despite having previously bragged in public interviews about producing and promoting it. There is video evidence of him taking credit for the project. Then, under oath, he claimed he had no role and didn't even know that some members were convicted rioters. These statements didn't create confusion. They created a pattern of denials contradicted by public facts, documents, and video clips. Legal analysts quickly picked up on this pattern. Experts noted that Patel's claims required the public to believe an extraordinary series of coincidences, that he forgot 8 podcast appearances, that he forgot producing a high-profile political song, that he forgot meetings where firings were planned, that he forgot communications with White House officials. Analysts concluded that the number of contradictions made it nearly impossible to assume good faith mistakes. Instead, it suggested deliberate misrepresentation, a dangerous position for someone under oath. As the pressure grew, attention shifted to the White House's potential involvement. Whistleblowers claim Patel wasn't acting alone. They said he coordinated with members of the Trump administration, including Stephen Miller, discussing who to fire and why. If true, that means the political purge wasn't just Patel's idea. It was a directive from above. And that raises the stakes dramatically. Because retaliatory firings ordered by a president or his officials aren't just unethical, they're illegal. They could expose Trump to legal consequences for directing actions intended to punish investigators who were lawfully examining him. Meanwhile, the Inspector General launched a full investigation. They requested documents from whistleblowers. They began interviewing witnesses. They compared Patel's sworn statements to internal records. And if they conclude Patel lied under oath, they must issue a criminal referral. That's not optional, that's required. And that places Attorney General Pam Bondi in a position with no easy way out. If she prosecutes Patel, she confirms that Trump appointed someone who lied to Congress. If she refuses, she signals that political allies receive special protection, even when caught in serious wrongdoing. Either decision creates political fallout. But behind all the politics, The most devastating part is what this means for the FBI itself. Agents who devoted their lives to protecting the country now find themselves dragged into a political war. They saw colleagues removed for refusing to bend the law. They saw leadership use their agency as a weapon. And they saw the director deny everything, even when evidence contradicted him. Whistleblowers have said they stepped forward, not because they wanted attention, but because they believed the FBI's integrity was collapsing from within. More documents continue to surface. More whistleblowers are stepping forward, and every new detail chips away at Patel's defenses. At this point, the evidence suggesting he misled Congress is overwhelming. The lawsuit against him grows stronger by the day, and political pressure is reaching the point where something has to break. If the Inspector General concludes that perjury occurred, that single finding could trigger a chain reaction with national implications. Patel could face prosecution. He could face removal. And if he flips to protect himself, he might reveal who else was involved, potentially exposing Trump's direct role in the illegal firings. The stakes are enormous, because this isn't just a scandal about one man lying under oath. It's about the possibility that the nation's top law enforcement agency was reshaped into a political tool. It's about whistleblowers risking careers to expose wrongdoing. It's about senators confronting an FBI director who couldn't reconcile his statements with reality. And it's about a looming investigation that could shake the foundations of an entire administration. One thing is certain. This story is nowhere near the end. The walls are closing in, evidence keeps piling up, investigations are accelerating, and accountability, whether some people like it or not, is coming. So if you want to follow this unraveling story, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. There's much more to uncover, and you won't want to miss what comes next.